Hello Internet people and hello members of the Tiddlerhood. I just want to show a little project I'm working on right now. I had this itch and I decided that, well, I just had to go and scratch it. Um, One of the things that I do get frustrated with is when I am although we're supposed to deal with small tiddlers as per the philosophy, sometimes we do wind up with tiddlers with a fair bit of content, especially if it involves a lot of macros or a lot of complexity with a lot of list widgets or any other kinds of widgets. So I decided to explore the possibility of code folding in TiddlyWiki with nothing other than a native TiddlyWiki functionality and maybe some CSS and other HTML further along as I go. First of all, folding, as per Wikipedia, right? Code folding is just a feature that allows the user to selectively hide and display, fold, sections of a currently edited file, in this scenario, Tiddler, as a part of routine editing operations. So this allows us to manage large amounts of text, especially complicated text if there are a lot of widgets in there, and multiple layers of widgets, so that we can view only those subsections of the text that are relevant to the task at the moment. Uh, my background is SQL Windows programming, today called Open Text Gupta Team Developer, and I'm used to unlimited folding. If we never mind the left pane here, but if you look at the right pane, unlimited folding so that you can see the big picture, but then drill down to whatever you need. So I guess I was pretty pampered in my career because I've always felt that this was the best uh, editor around as far as folding went. I've seen nothing today that matches this. Anyway, because I'm pampered and I'm used to this kind of thing, the princess that I am, I decided, boy, I'd sure like to have this kind of thing in TiddlyWiki. And not being a JavaScript programmer, how far can I go with this? And I'll show you where I am so far. I've only looked at the moment at folding code that has macros in it. So likely a macro, a tiddler macro, a tiddler for macros. Let's take a look at a sample I've got here, and what I've got is just a very small sample tiddler with macros in it. And when we drag it to the drop area, a bunch of things happen here. Let me describe what's going on. First of all, this is exactly what's inside the tiddler we just dropped. And if we go check just to see, there it is, right? A couple of macros defined in there. So we're just displaying here the source tiddler, the contents of the source tiddler. And the results of the processing is this. We have the two macros set up as details widgets with just the snippet of text defined for the macro. So nothing super fancy, but still, this is a nice little starter prototype to try to figure out how far I can go with this. Now, the first thing that happens when I drag that tiddler over is it gets parsed, it gets split line by line, and each line from the source tiddler is then put into a data tiddler, one line at a time, and with all kinds of stuff I've needed in there to try to figure out how to break all of this apart into sections. So all this gets put in there, and then after that, we have to figure out how to group these lines. And I won't get into the details of the processing here. Just generic code. Whenever a defined line is found, it applies an end to the previous group of lines that it was dealing with, and then a start to an upcoming bunch of lines up until the end for the macro. So when we've hit the first macro, it says, okay, well, the previous grouping is done, so we can ignore this. But then it figures out, okay, well, for the macro 1, it involves lines 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And once it reaches it starts with the define and keeps trucking along and reaches the end. And when it reaches the end, it says, okay, well, the end is at line 4. And then right away it figures, okay, but the beginning of the next line is going to be 5, right, for the next grouping. And so on and so forth. Kind of a complicated deal. I don't want to go through the code that does all of this because it's pretty complicated. But anyway, this is the end result. And this is kind of what I'm looking for. The big job is going to be trying to figure out how, and let's look at the source code just to give you an example. How do we parse code so that way we can match, let's say, a list widget, the start of it, with the actual tag that ends it. We look, there's one list, and oh, there's a second one. And okay, now we're ending the second one, and then we're starting another one, and then we're ending that one, and finally, this is the match here. So something we can do by scanning with our eyeballs. But how do we get TiddlyWiki to recognize which ones are the matches for start and end, and how to deal with things in between, such as variables, and the start and end of those, and list widgets inside, etc., etc. So it may be impossible, but I'm not giving up just yet. At least I know I can do this much. And even that, even if this were the only thing I could do, and before hitting the wall, so can't get beyond this, the idea that I could have a tiddler with a whole bunch of macros in it, and I could view it this way to be able to focus on specific macros, that works for me cognitively. I love that kind of thing. Anyway, I just want to show you real quick, what's possible with just TiddlyWiki code. There's no CSS here, nothing. Now, of course, it requires the details widget, which I love, and will likely be the linchpin to make all of this work if I do get any further along with it. Anyway, cheers.